You know, there's a real problem in the Democratic Party. And if you're left-leaning, you might not want to hear this. If you're even, in the center, you might not want to hear this because you might not agree with everything that Trump is doing. But there is a real problem in the Democratic Party, and it has to do around them not understanding what the populace wants, what the people actually want. But let's get into it, boys. Make sure you like the video so YouTube counts your views, and subscribe. We got a great show for you tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting into it today. Antifa being announced as a domestic terrorist organization. There's a lot going on though with the Democratic Party right now. There's a lot of support going on for Antifa, for different protests attacking ICE facilities. And right now, Portland, Oregon has turned into a very bad place where ICE is trying to operate and they can't. And you know what the issue is? The Democratic Party doesn't understand why the normal American public, why the normal public all across the world doesn't want open borders, doesn't want multiculturalism or multipolarity. They don't want this lie that the UN is selling, that we should all basically be open border nations and just flood each other's nations with people from third world countries. They just can't understand it. But let's get into it. So President Trump announced that Pete Hegseth is to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and any other ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists. Yeah, that's right, boys. Antifa is actually done, finally. But if you don't know what's wrong with the Democratic Party, what's wrong with the left-leaning party, or maybe you do, but maybe you just don't want to hear it, I might be able to prove it to you tonight. What's actually going on, why they're this way, why they think this or why they shouldn't think this way, why it's never going to get them into office. And first and foremost, what a lot of people don't understand about Antifa is they are fully, and I mean fully, NGO funded. They have full-blown lawyers that protest with them to protect them. Now, you could say this is just community coming together, but in reality, they have way too much funding. They have riot shields, helmets, masks, full-blown gas masks. They're completely covered with head to toe in black and fully ready for any amount of response that the ICE police could enact upon them so they could actually do their jobs. Okay, but first and foremost, what a lot of people don't know is it's actually funded, and we don't know where the funding is coming from. There's a lot of speculation around George Soros and some other people, but there's definitely funding going into Antifa. He's deploying the National Guard to restore law and order. And it's clear that if Antifa is funded and they are using this funding to basically supersede the law to prevent ICE from actually deporting dangerous illegal immigrants or any illegal immigrants at all, if they're preventing ICE from doing that, then they are not only a threat, but they are a domestic threat. And the oath that the officers took was to protect against threats both foreign and domestic, and it's clear that Antifa is a domestic threat. And not only that, they're more than likely a domestic terrorist organization.
People, this is organized, they're committing acts of political terrorism on American soil, and it's time we had a government that looked out for the American people rather than the people who are committing violence against the American people.
When you go out to Portland and you see what's happening in Portland, this is like nobody's ever seen anything like it. Every night, and this has gone on for years, they just burn the place down, and the shop owners, most of them have left, but the few shops that are open, they just use plywood and just like 3/4 inch plywood. They don't put storefronts because they know it's going to be burned down.
Now, you can ask yourself this, right? If they are professional agitators, like Trump says, if they are fully funded by different people to basically apply threat to, government facilities and government workers, then they are a terrorist organization. And if they are a terrorist organization, why are so many Democratic politicians supporting them? Why do they have so much support from the politicians that are in office that are meant to protect, government employees and American citizens, because government employees are American citizens, from protests like this, from people that get together like this? This is a funded protest. This is not an organic protest. These are funded fully supported with lawyers and everything, and it's coming from big money. Now ask yourself this: if this is going on, if this is a domestic threat, why are so many Democratic politicians basically supporting this? They know open borders is not a popular idea. They know it's not, but this is the issue. We have moved in America closer to social politics than we have from economic politics, from real policy. Instead of getting voted in or you're campaigning on their policies of how they're going to help America, help the infrastructure, help technology, help solidify the border, Democratic politicians are running on social problems so that you vote for them because they align themselves with you socially and not due to their policy. And it's come to the fact that because of this, we have a bunch of incompetent, literally economically inept, policy inept, infrastructure policy inept, fully incompetent, incapable politicians that got elected due to social issues and social reasons, because they rely on those amount of people to vote for them because of social reasons, rather than actually applying good policy and getting voted on for their policy. So this has come to be a literal issue. They cannot cross the aisle. They cannot side with Republicans. They can't side with anyone that's across the aisle. Otherwise, it'll look like they're betraying their voters that voted for them for their social reasons, because it'll look like they're agreeing with the Republicans on these social issues. And it's not. And in reality, we should move as far away from these issues as possible, as far away from these social issue politicians as possible, and back to policy politicians that actually want to help the infrastructure, that actually agree on the fact that both Democrats and Republicans are supposed to represent American values, and they don't. The issue is they don't. Both parties are supposed to be capitalist. Both parties are supposed to be nationalist. Both parties are supposed to want good for the country, good for the infrastructure. They're supposed to want a closed border. But the issue is they don't. They run on social issues, and to do those social issues, they have to have an open border, and because they agree on quote unquote an open border and multipolarity, they have to basically be against ICE, and in doing so, they cannot be against Antifa. And it's absolutely disgusting what is going on. And as we move forward, you'll see that this is a fact founded in reality, because Democratic politicians have moved so far into supporting these social issues that they would have fully erode everything that the nation stands for, everything that America stands for, everything that Western society stands for. I mean, does the Democratic Party even represent what America is supposed to be about anymore? Do they at all? Do they even represent what the Democratic Party was 30, 40, 50 years ago? No, they've been hijacked by the progressive movement, which was funded, by the way. They have fully moved from democratic ideals to progressive socialist ideals, which are exactly and extremely against Western society values and against American values. But as we move forward, you will see that this is actually a fact. But again, Attorney General Pam Bondi is deploying federal agents to ICE facilities around the country. If you as much as touch one of our federal officers, you will go to prison. These are not only government employees, but they are acting within the law. And for a funded group to go out and supersede that, to intervene with that, they are a domestic threat, and they absolutely must be dealt with. But what does Gavin Newsom? This is another political agenda, a socialist agenda activist that parades themselves as a politician whose only policies are to enforce their social agenda, and it's absolutely disgusting. So what does he do about this? He knows that ICE officers are out there deporting illegal immigrants, deporting cartel members, and their families could be in danger, and that's why they're covering their faces. Not because they're ashamed, but because they're hiding their faces, because the cartel will literally attack their family to basically force them to give up the job, or just out of revenge. And it's disgusting. Governor Newsom knows this, as does every American knows this. That's why they're covering their faces, because under Joe Biden, they let in 10 million illegal immigrants, a lot of them being drug cartels. And a lot of the cartels are absolutely dangerous and use a lot of underhanded tactics. Well, Gavin Newsom, to literally, concrete, he's so concrete in that social agenda policy that what does he do? He signs the legislation attempting to ban face coverings for federal agents at a time when violence against ICE is at an all-time high. And not just, organic violence, but NGO funded, literal funded, with lawyers protecting them, that are literally attacking people all across the globe, attacking governments all across the globe, full-blown anarchists that are funded by both foreign and domestic entities are literally attacking our government facilities and our government employees. And his first act with that social agenda policy is to remove federal agents' face coverings. Their last line of defense against cartel members and dangerous Antifa that would attack their homes and their families simply for doing their job, because we have to. You can ask yourself, why are they deporting normal illegal immigrants that aren't criminals, that haven't done anything wrong? Let me explain to you how the system works. There is an asylum system. 90-something% of the illegal immigrants that are here now don't even apply for asylum. They don't even meet the requirements for asylum. As soon as their system is done being, as soon as they're done being run through the system, they're deported because they can't even apply for asylum because they don't meet the requirements. But they backed up the immigration system by more than 10 years. And that means that any single person that is actually applying for asylum outside of the country out of fear and persecution, they can't get in. They can't get into the system because they're in a 10-year wait for obeying the law, for not crossing the border, for doing the right thing. They are forced to wait for over 10 years until this problem is solved while they await fear, persecution, and everything, while we have to get these illegal immigrants out because their open border socialist policies literally let them through. And the rest of the public knows it too. This is not some issue that is dividing the country. This is an 80-20 issue. The most insane people are the ones that want open borders. The most insane people are the ones that don't want deportations, because everyone understands that a country needs borders, it needs law, and it needs consequences to enforce it. And without any consequences, a border policy will never work. Now, after labeling Antifa a terrorist organization, after showing the country what Antifa actually was, that they were a domestic threat, and after all of this, Gavin Newsom still supported them. And after not only were federal agents ran out of Portland, Oregon by literal mobs, by mobs of people, after Antifa literally brute force numbered police officers out of a Portland, Oregon ICE facility, what does the Portland mayor do? He takes the side of Antifa as well. It's prolonged insurgency against Portland federal buildings and staff. He appears to have support of Adjutant General Alan Grunwald of the Oregon National Guard. This is ridiculous. This is treason. We all know there needs to be deportations. We all know there needs to be a border policy because we have laws for a reason. There are legal ways to get immigration, and pretending that Mexico, Cuba, Venezuela can't apply for those is utterly ridiculous. The world has gotten to a literal technological point that they can. Okay, Mexico is not some rundown country. They have full-blown technology. They can get online as well. They can apply through the immigration system as well. And because they came in mass because they knew they didn't meet the requirements for asylum. They were just seeking a better life. And I don't blame them, but there has to be consequences for crossing the border illegally. But of course, there needs to be consequences as well for mayors that side with literal Antifa and side with insurgency, foreign and domestic funded threat insurgency against federal officers and buildings. For social issue policy, for social politicians like this, there needs to be consequences, absolutely, because the farther that we get away from this social issue politicians and policy, the faster we get on backtrack of what America and the Western society was meant to be. And as they move closer to multipolarity and this open border globalism nonsense, the more that we need to fight against it. And ICE is doing doing that. Now, the issue is there's a big issue in the Democratic Party. They don't believe in nationalism anymore. They think nationalism is a threat. They think Christian nationalism is a threat. They think all nationalism is a threat. And it's utterly ridiculous. Both Democrats and Republicans are supposed to be nationalists. They're supposed to be have pride in their country. They're also supposed to be capitalist. Now, you can have social policies that you enforce to help the smaller people. Social programs are normal in capitalist countries right now under these governments, and we've had them for a long time. And literally, being capitalist does not mean that you cannot have social programs. Both parties are supposed to be literal patriots, nationalists, and support, capitalism. But instead, we've moved to this, where it's all about social programs. It's all about not agreeing with the other side. Otherwise, you'll be seen as agreeing with them socially. And then you have a divide in the country that is utterly ridiculous. And these people wonder, they wonder why they'll never win another election. And until a literal base Democrat comes about that actually, understands what's going on, doesn't want open borders, doesn't want kids transitioning, doesn't want all the nonsense, doesn't want Antifa being funded by foreign governments to cause fear and persecution upon our own borders, upon our own federal officers, until a Democrat actually comes out and condemns these things, condemns things that are so clearly not right, not what the government is supposed to be enforcing, and goes back to literally trying to come up with good policy, good issues to actually talk about. Until that happens, I just really don't see a Democrat getting into office, people. And as long as they support Antifa, like Gavin Newsom is doing, until that happens, until they stop doing this, I just don't see them moving forward. And honestly, it's going to hold the country in an absolute standstill, because believe it or not, conservatives, Republicans, and Democrats are supposed to agree. They're supposed to agree with one another. They're supposed to reach across the aisle at least every now and then to vote on the same policy that they think are good. But right now, the country is so divided due to social issues that they won't. They absolutely won't, and it's utterly ridiculous. It's a facade. It's a game. It's a game that they're playing because they can guarantee that they'll get a certain amount of votes as long as they keep up this act that they agree with people's social issues, when we all know that they don't. We need to move both parties back to capitalists and nationalism. Now, that doesn't mean you go to an isolationist, nationalist, but absolutely, we need to move back to capitalism and nationalism and have some pride in the country and actually understand that we're all fellow Americans. And to attack, ICE police that are just doing their jobs, that are enforcing the law of the country, until that happens, we absolutely need to see some change in the country. All right, boys, like the video so that YouTube counts your view as a view, and make sure you subscribe. That's gonna be it for me. GG's, peace.